Thank you, Pasi. So unfortunately, time is running by really fast. So what I propose we do is take 3 questions and then continue discussion about this topic with a cocktail in hand. So, but we can start with Mr. Stetter had a question, and then 2 more after that.
Thank you for giving me again the floor. I would just like to say I was more than happy that Lisa put this so positively in a way, but nevertheless, and this is the question or the comment, we should be aware that we will have a problem with populists and we will have also a problem with racist people. If you are saying 78% or so of the right-wing parties, well, this is perhaps the peak. Nevertheless, you can have a situation like in France where it's most probable eventually that the next president comes from Front National, and this will change a lot in the whole circumstances we are talking about. And I think in that way also, Gero, I think within our party, the SPD, I'm also a member there, like you, perhaps currently the debate is not an open one, but it's burning, it's cooking, and it can come up very, very quickly also within the SPD that there is a kind of eruption coming up, as it was this weekend in the CSU party. So we have to be careful on this issue. But my point is, there is the danger of populist parties which are changing the whole thing, even if we are saying, as you are saying, Europe, if you have 500 million population and 5 million are coming, this is 1% of the whole population. So the figures are not very high, but the problem can become very, very important. Thank you.
Ja sitten 2 kysymystä vielä lisää. Suomeksikin voi kysyä.
My question is about relationship between austerity politics and immigration. So austerity politics has failed to give us growth. So can we have success in integration with austerity politics and without growth?
One more? Anybody? Here's one, there's another one.
Thank you for the interesting presentations. I was wondering about the concept of integration. If we think of the countries or continents of immigration, like Australia or Canada, US, in those places you actually see clear distinctions between the communities, so the Indians and the Koreans and the Italians all have kept a lot of their identity. So what is it actually that we want the people to integrate to when they come to Finland or to Nordic countries or to Europe?
Okay, who wants to respond, or should we just have a round? Everybody can comment. Who wants to? You can start. Use the one, the handheld.
This one, is it working? Yes. No, thank you very much for this reminder that xenophobia is a very real threat. In my mind, I think as Social Democrats, the only way we can meet this is to frame the issue of immigration as an issue of redistribution. And that's our best sport. No one is better at redistribution than we are. And it's because it's so clearly an issue where you need to redistribute from long-term gains to short-term cost, and where you need to redistribute these long-term diffuse gains to very real costs that are not evenly carried. They are carried by people are in sectors of the labor market where they already have low wages, bad conditions. They're carried by people that already live in neighborhoods where they don't feel safe. They're carried by parents who already have their kids in school where they worry about the school results. So we need a very strong redistribution politics here. And of course, it's really difficult to combine this with austerity, because precisely these kinds of investments that you need to do in better schools, in better housing, in investment in growth, you can't do because of austerity. Now that the talk is about refugee Keynesianism. You know, I don't care what kind of Keynesianism, but I do think we need some more Keynesianism in this continent. You know, we need to do more investments, and what the forecast in Sweden now is that the growth in the coming years will be much higher than the forecast was before this large inflow of asylum seekers. Why? Because suddenly the state will have to invest. They will have to build houses. They will have to open up new classrooms. They will have to employ new teachers. They will have to employ a lot of people in social services. And this will actually boost consumption, and boosting consumption means boosting growth. So, in the short-term perspective, at least, it looks fine. It's easy to say from the Swedish perspective because we can afford to borrow money. Some other European states cannot afford to borrow money to do this boosting exercise. But you know, if you can, and if you're able to frame immigration as an investment that you need to optimize and not a cost you need to minimize, I think you are on the way of framing it in a social democratic way that can also win over some of the people that vote for the populist parties because they're worried about the redistribution. They're worried about living in unsafe neighborhoods. They're worried about the condition at school. They're worried about the condition at the labor market. And our answer to this has to be, there is a way of meeting this while keeping an open Europe.
Gero, Pasi.
Yeah, thank you. In Germany, you have an independent economic advisory council, yeah, and they quite recently said that's absolutely no problem to finance the wave of refugees, yeah, concerning Germany. I think we already see it in France, yeah, that the Commission said, of course, we have to take this into account. Often I also ask myself, what does it mean, austerity? Has there been austerity in Germany in the same extent as in Greece or in Spain? Honestly, no, never. Yeah, of course, we had this famous Agenda 2010, and we had a lot of social side effects, of course. Yeah, I don't want to minimize it, but never ever to this extent as in Greece and in Spain. So I would be cautious to use it in a too inflationary way. Yeah, the austerity, integration, absolutely right. Yeah. On the other hand, I think if we don't take into account that's what I meant with a digestion capacity of a society. So it goes step by step, yeah. And I totally agree. Optimism is always good, but I would opt for an optimistic realism, maybe, yeah. No, to take into account the difficulties, yeah. I mean, also from a social democratic point of view, if we are in a way too optimistic, yeah, don't looking into the detail, don't want to see the problems, yeah. Do you really then think we end up in government then having the possibility to influence politics? I don't think so, yeah. So we don't have to go as far maybe as our Danish colleagues, yeah. So very, very skeptic, yeah. So we had a debate with the European Minister Michael Roth last week, and a couple of MPs from the Social Democrats. They were very, very skeptic, yeah. But maybe we find the middle way. And I think also what you said, we need a new concept of integration and a vision of a different society. The old kind of Nordic model, the old kind of image of Finnish society, of German society, that has come to an end.
Thank you. And Pasi?
Yes, only brief comments. I'm politically neutral myself, so I can think freely about what will take place in the political landscape. I also find it quite possible that there will be a kind of a populist, neo-nationalist takeover in European politics. It has taken place in some places already, and it's definitely not impossible that it will take place to such an extent that it will have an influence on the EU policies as well. But the point is that if that happens, will that kind of a national member state national policies and EU policies be in a way able to close the borders? No, it won't. Will it be able to produce that kind of a nostalgic, nationalistic, homogeneous national societies? No. So they will most probably quite badly miss their ideals. And what will happen then? That's the question that is puzzling me. About the concept of integration, I suppose that Finland is one of the very few countries I know where integration has been defined in the law. I think in Sweden there is no such a definition, nor in Germany. But if I remember now correctly by heart in English, integration means a mutual process between the immigrant and the Finnish society, where the newcomer starts participating in the Finnish society, especially in the labor market, while at the same time maintaining his or her language and culture. It becomes very close to the Swedish one, and it was copied a little bit from there in the 1990s. But the point is that was already also said by Gerard, that what does it really mean to be integrated in society? What kind of a society is Finland that you are supposed to integrate to? And then there is a big question in Finland, what do these linguistic and cultural rights of immigrants really mean in practice? That's a question that is still very much undebated in Finland. And about the austerity things, yes, Finland has been a little bit unlucky in the sense that the 2 times that we have had a higher peak in immigration in the early 1990s, and then now it has taken place at the same time as we have been facing tough times in the Finnish economy. So of course it causes some problems. But the big question for me is the future labor market in terms of structures, professional structures. Do we have in the future, in 20, 30 years' time, still that kind of jobs that people are able to get without much education, without linguistic skills, without knowing the cultural practices? The trend seems that they are diminishing all the time, and it means all the time also more challenges in the integration processes.
Okay, thank you all for sharing your insights. Okay, very quick.
No, that you don't misunderstand me. When I'm talking about the kind of new vision of society, of course there is a basis. Yeah, in the German case, that's our basic law. Yeah, that is to accept. Yeah, so we don't want parallel kind of judges as you find in certain parts of Berlin, for example. Yeah, so in this sense, never ever. Yeah, so that I just wanted to add this.
Thank you.